obesity is a leading cause for cardiovascular disease, kills as many as smoking every year. 1 in every 3 adults in the UAE is suffering from obesity. 1 in every 14 youngsters is obese. Part of it is due to physical inactivity. We are right now have to re-educate people about their sedentary lifestyle and their lifestyle choices and their impact on their health and wealth.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Academy Podcast with the #1 international best-selling author and multi-award winning success and life coach, Kamil Shah. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking this opportunity to grow together with me, Kamil Shah, and my guests on this program. Each episode of the Academy Podcast is filled with insights and wisdom from my guests, which I believe can have a profound impact on the way we live our lives. Without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Academy Podcast with me, Kamil Shah. Whatever you're doing as you join us today, whether you're on your commute, your daily walk, or at the gym, my wish is that you are in a state of peace. Today's episode will be an interesting one. It's a slight departure from other episodes, but one that I'm sure you'll connect and resonate with. We will be talking about mental health and the city. To explore this topic with me today is a good friend of mine, Deema Aburizik. Deema is an urban design consultant and founder of Street Design Team, a Dubai-based startup focused on creating the conditions that enable people to walk and cycle through better infrastructure design, policies, and campaigns. She worked with Dubai's Roads and Transport Authority on the implementation of the principles and strategies set by the Dubai Urban Plan 2040, including the Dubai Cycling Friendly City initiatives. Prior to joining the RTA, Deema worked as a design director at Arada, a design-driven real estate developer, and led the urban planning and design practice for the UAE at Khatib Alami, where she worked with major developers such as Dubai Holdings, Meraas, and Majid Al Futtaim Properties. The projects included public realm design and strategic citywide studies such as urban growth and housing. Deema also worked as a researcher and analyst at Colliers International and as a research and coordination officer at the Center for the Study of the Built Environment, CSBE, in Jordan, where she served as a liaison officer between CSBE and Habitat for Humanity in Jordan. Welcome, Deema.
Thank you, Camille. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So just a bit of a backstory for people tuning in who don't know this. Deema and I are good friends, and we've worked together in the past in the same company.
Many years. Yeah. We shared an office.
Yes, absolutely. We shared an office. So I guess this is going to be an interesting episode because as we were talking before the recording started, it's kind of interesting that we are bringing in the expertise that we have in terms of urban planning and city design and the connection between mental health, which is, if you've been tuning into the previous episodes in the podcast, I cover a lot of the topics related to mental health and well-being. So this is the first time, I think one of the first episodes that we're going to be talking about the relationship between city design, built environment, and mental health. And I think the best person to be talking about this is yourself, Deema, because you've got a wealth.
Camille, we're talking about your other half of your life, the 8 hours you spend a day working as a designer.
Absolutely. And I think the wealth of experience that you've had in the past and still do. And I think we're going to cover this in this episode about the work that you currently do with your own startup, which I think is going to be a really interesting topic to cover as well.
I was thinking today about because we haven't been to work together since 2018, I think. And I remember our office. I remember when you joined, actually, because I was in the firm before you. And when you joined, maybe the first month, you finished the Dubai Marathon. And it was a big milestone. It was, I think, was it your first marathon?
Yes, it was. It was on my bucket list.
was like a big major milestone. You've also like moved to Dubai. You were settling in, and it was a very, very special time. And I also remember that you had affirmations. You printed the whole board and you put it in the space we shared. And we shared the office also with our good friend Mirna. Our space, because of your energy and Mirna's energy, people used to say when they come to this area that it felt different, that it was brighter. And I really am grateful for you and Mirna for the nice memories, the deadlines we shared, the memories we shared, and I cherish it so much.
Thank you for just refreshing my memory about, the time that we spent. And it's interesting that you brought up that marathon, because Dubai is a perfect place for not only the built environment, but how the built environment and the connection between people that live in Dubai. Now, why I say that is because, Dubai Marathon, when I did the Dubai Marathon, they literally closed out all the streets, all the major streets in Dubai. And I think, fast forward a few years, they still do that, but not only marathons, but also, people cycle and all sorts of things happen on the streets of Dubai, which if you think about any other major cities, it's going to be a big challenge to divert and close major roadways in major cities. So I think that's something that Dubai's done really well in terms of organizing.
Marathons and the built environment, we always connect sports with the built environment, and especially marathons, because marathons cover a large expanse of areas and they're not constrained to tracks. So they're like interrelated most of the time. And the other sport that is also extremely linked to cities is cycling, because or extremely linked to the context that is presented in. So is cycling. However, let's define to your audience what is urban design, because not everybody would know that. So city making, like there are many people involved in the city making process. City making, we have infrastructure engineers. We have road and transportation engineers or traffic engineers. We have architects who usually design cities. We have landscape architects who are closely related to urban design. However, they have more knowledge on the plant side and horticulture side, and they know about more of the operation and the maintenance, and they have more understanding of the biophilic aspect. And there's urban planners. Urban planners traditionally were people who draw big plans about big towns or districts or multiple districts, and they work closely with economists and land surveyors, etc. And there's urban designers. So for me, an urban designer is the interface between infrastructure, the built form, which is architecture, and the public realm designers. So the word urban, it refers to the scale that we are working on. So the scale is not constrained to a plot or a room or like interior designers, and we're not constrained to the landscape or the softscape part of it or the hardscape of it. And we are not also like, that's a scale. And the design is that we are always implying the design principles, whereby we are thinking about the users, thinking about the need, testing and iterating. So we are applying the design principles on an urban scale. And that's what we are getting to. What kind of projects we work on? We work on a scale of street, the space in between buildings. It can be not a street or a vehicular street. It can be walkways or like linkages or lanes between buildings. And we work on a scale of multiple buildings working together, like what we call here in the UAE compounds, or like gated developments, gated communities. And then the interface between the gated communities and the surrounding city around it, and then on a scale of multiple districts or cities like to a lesser extent. But this is what is urban design.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great kind of explanation of the difference between the different disciplines. And I think I struggle sometimes when I try to explain what I do now. I think we all do come from a previous discipline of architecture, and people, when you say architecture, people understand it's the building. But when we talk about urban design and urban planning, people get a bit lost, because it's not really a kind of a discipline which, again, until fairly recently compared to architecture. I think urban design, urban planning only came up, urban planning especially came up in the 50s, 50s, 60s, when, as you're explaining, large expanses of land were being planned. And I think all it came after the World War, where, governments and cities needed to rebuild at a large scale. So you need to kind of plan at a large scale, which previously architecture was only focused on the building and the plot, but now urban planning, urban design are kind of vast expanses of land and cities.
I think also if you look at the Renaissance period, the Michelangelo was an urban designer, but the people, like a brilliant person like Michelangelo, he was an engineer, he was an inventor, he was an artist, and he was an urban designer. So he would think about and he was a builder at the same time. And then so traditionally, or like, people were not very specialized. People like him, but we're all geniuses, And then we moved forward, and then it became specialized. And the architecture became architecture, urban planning became urban planning, and transportation became transportation. Right now, people are looking that for someone like an urban designer who can talk the different languages, understand the different requirements, and put things together in a design manner with also engineering understanding. So it's both these things at the same time.
And it's really interesting as well. You explain about the role of other things or stitching things together, not only the buildings, but the spaces between the buildings, and also the stuff that we don't see, which is, the infrastructure, the stuff below the surface of the asphalt, the sidewalks, which is not really glamorous. The corridors.
But for us, it's so interesting for us.
Yeah, which is absolutely vital, for water, for gas, electricity, for waste management, all this stuff, which on a day-to-day we probably take for granted, is absolutely crucial and vital at a technical level to allow the city to sustain itself and grow. So I think that's something, it's really nice that you touched on or kind of expanded a bit more about urban design and urban planning in relationship between the different compartments and elements. Off the back of that, we touched a little bit about what you do, but if you can expand a little bit more about street design and your startup, and how do you contribute to developing, we'll delve into this, but a healthier city.
So as you explained, being an architect, interested in design, and if you're not interested in buildings per se, and I wasn't interested in buildings, I was very happy to find the urban scale. And I worked for a very long time as a consultant, where we worked on different scales of projects. And then I worked as a developer, which is also like a very nice experience. And then I had the very great opportunity to work on the government, with the government of Dubai at the RTA, where we worked on those initiatives related to cycling friendly city. So I would say that in the past 5 years, my focus was mostly about cycling and walking as a mobility form in cities. So we're talking about cycling as a transport, not a sport, in terms of my job. So, but however, like, we can cover it as a sport or in the built environment. But my focus right now is to promote walking and cycling as a mobility means in our region, because the more I work on it, the more I realize the benefits of creating cities for people and not for cars, how it is right now becoming a necessity more than a luxury to look at other mobility means for many reasons, such as the health of our societies, such as the economy of our societies, and such as the worth and economy, and lastly for the environment, of course, that we really have to reconsider using the car. And when I, as I told you, in the city making process in our region, every day I felt that there's a gap. We have lots of engineering, large multidisciplinary engineering firms in the region. We have a very capable government sector. We have academia, and however, we lack the advocacy aspect. You have them in the States and you have them in Europe, whereby a community-driven initiatives are like a community, a neighborhood, or a school. They will have to talk to an engineer or a multidisciplinary engineering firm to solve an issue with what they have in their public realm or in their neighborhood or in their street. However, they can't communicate on their own about their needs. So I felt that an advocacy firm is needed, or a community group is needed to translate the principles of our practice, what we call it cycling and walking urbanism, and translating it more to community-based initiatives in our region.
I think that's a really important point that you brought up there about the translating the ideas of residents who live in a community, which sometimes gets lost when it comes to, sharing the ideas with, for example, authorities, because authorities, I think that the thing that you're doing is becoming the gel between the residents and the authorities, of translating the needs and the wants of residents, especially when it comes to cycling, walking, safer neighborhoods. And how does that then, with the background that you have in terms of how things work when it comes to translating it into legislation and from the authority side, I think that's a fantastic thing that you're doing, that you become the gel or between these two parties or elements.
The city making process needs everybody. So we need the engineering, we need the economists to make things make sense. We need the environmentalists to give us give us in check about our consumption. We need the government that sets the policy and sets the KPIs and sets governs, regulates the whole thing. And we need the designers, the dreamers, to look at all of this. But at the same time, we need to talk to the stakeholders and to talk to the people who are living on neighborhoods. And then the city making process is not static. And cities, as you know, are very, very, very dynamic. So whatever that was the parameters or the criteria that this neighborhood or this street was designed on, however, when things change, when the neighborhoods change, when the mobility means change, when the information age change, or the awareness changes, then we need to continue to evolve this built environment, and we need to empower the stakeholders, which are the community themselves living on that street or using that street, in order to work with the engineering, work with the government in order to meet their goals. So that's the notion of street design. I'll tell you the story about the name of the street design. Let me define what is a street design team. A street design team is a startup right now in Dubai, whereby we are working to promote walking and cycling mobility and urbanism, to save the environment, to create fairer societies for everybody as an affordable means of transportation, and increase the livability of our streets and cities. How did we come up with the name? So I knew I'm going to have a startup, and I knew it's going to be about design, it's about streets, and it's about urbanism. However, I was reading a book written by Chuck Maroon called Confessions of a Recovering Engineer. And it's a recent book. Chuck Maroon, he is an engineer, a transportation engineer. And he writes about that the cities in the US, after the World War II, they created this car-centric suburban growth that actually bankrupted cities. The cities that grew and grew larger and larger required so much money to build infrastructure, and now they cannot maintain them. The whole point of the infrastructure was to create wealth for societies. The whole purpose of roads in roads and railways since the creation of cities was to create wealth for those cities. But when we replace the compact cities, the meaningful form of compact cities, into the suburban form, the cities have lost their meaning and they became bankrupt. So Chuck, in his book, he writes that the design of these roads became a goal rather than a tool. So we are applying highway design principles on the local street design, local streets. So we're creating highways, or what he calls roads, between our residential buildings. And then this is because we are using the toolbox of highway design. So instead of that, we need to go back to the community. We need to form street design teams that are not led by engineers, that are led by the people who are in the community. They themselves determine the goal of the study of the street, of their neighborhood. They decide, and then based on that, we actually go backwards from that goal. For instance, if a street improvement is to improve the wealth in that neighborhood. If the street improvement is to improve the safety of that neighborhood, then the experts such as the safety engineer, the road engineer, the economist, the real estate developer, the shop owners, we work from backwards from that point, which is, for instance, to increase safety or to increase wealth, and we work backwards. And he called those teams street design teams. So I contacted them. And I said, I love the name and I'm starting a startup. Can I use the name? And they said, of course. And we love you and we support you all the way. And they've been very, very supportive ever since. And this is how we called it the street design team.
Wow, amazing. Thanks for sharing that, how you got to where you are now. And I think that's a really interesting kind of journey. So just as you were talking, a few things came up. I have a few questions possibly we can delve into. The first thing is I want to come back to the idea of how can the streets that professionals and residents collectively and authorities collectively design together, how can they contribute to a healthier society? In the context of this day and age where I reflect on when we were young, much younger, when I was growing up, playing in the streets. We never had iPads, we never had social media, we never had mobile phones. We were out and about playing after school, and we'll probably come back when sunset. It's kind of a challenging dilemma right now where a lot of these devices are vying for not only the adults our attention but the kids' attention, especially with what's happened in COVID, online learning. Kids are more accustomed to doing work online. So how do we then, it's a big ask, but I think it's a fantastic opportunity of how can we shift or at least readdress the balance between, yes, we can't stop technology, but how can we still allow technology to be part of our lives, but not our entire lives, so that, kids.
Well, I can talk about everything. I cannot talk about technology.
Sure.
So I'm like everybody, finding my way, struggling and testing and retesting and taking from there. But in order to design a street that promotes well-being, so we need to differentiate between two things. Are we designing a street for cars, or are we designing a street for people? If they are designing the street, the criteria for the street is to move as many as like a volume of cars in a street as possible. So it's like the criteria, the purpose is capacity and speed. Then this is a street. This is the function of it. However, we don't need these streets everywhere. We don't need Sheikh Zayed Road everywhere. We don't need Dubai Abu Dhabi highway at the 311, the 611. We don't need these highways everywhere. We need these highways to move, as I said, volume and speed in a very effective manner. However, in neighborhoods, we need streets that create wealth and health, and you can think about them as stages for social interaction. So this is the streets that will actually promote well-being, and I will always talk about three things: health, wealth, and environment for the society. What are the characteristics, or how can streets contribute to the well-being of the community? The street, if it's a street, is compact, and if it has a human scale, I mean, like, you don't have to break your neck in order to look at the top of the building. You don't have to shout to the other side of the street in order for someone to hear you. There's some sort of enclosure. That's called the human scale. So those streets, they encourage interaction between the people. They are places for everybody. They are places for people who are 80 years old and 8 years old. They don't alienate people. These streets have places to rest, to walk, to linger. They have mix of uses, whereby they have commercial, residential, offices, pharmacies, nightclubs. These mix of uses animate the streets in different times of the day. So this is a characteristics of that street. The street offers different mobility options for people of determination. Someone who's walking slowly, someone who's walking faster, and then maybe another mode of transport, maybe cycling or walking or public transport. And the car is a guest on those streets. This is the kind of street that is actually promoting well-being. Another aspect of the street that promotes well-being is trees. and plants. As you are well aware that we humans crave nature, and we love cities, but at the same time we're passionate about cities, but we still need nature in those cities. So those streets are actually, we really need the biophilic aspect of those trees in order to. That's a human need. As you are well aware, we humans need that in order to live and recover, and for our immune system and for our mental well-being. The last aspect, I'm not sure if I mentioned everything, but I remember, I think one thing also, the streets should also contribute to the economy of the neighborhood. So we are not naive thinking that the street will, if it's only residential, that it's going to survive. It has to have different kind of uses so that it can withdraw the different shocks in the economy and in the change of habits and etc. That's how streets become more agile, and they create wealth to the community. And then, of course, when people have wealth, they can actually have better well-being because they can sustain their basic needs. And the last aspect of streets is that, which is not least important, but it's very important, is the infrastructure aspect. So right now, streets are even thought about they're not only where you can, like, conduits for pipes underneath the pavement or for power or etc. We are thinking of streets as passive stormwater management systems. We're rethinking about the surfaces of the streets. Instead of using asphalt and concrete, we're looking at bioswales and about porous pavement, and about dealing with heat, urban heat and the heat waves that we are facing. So even streets right now have to become part of the resiliency plans of cities.
This is great. This is fantastic. I want to go back to something that is critical that you mentioned right at the beginning there, about kind of flipping the narrative of cars being secondary as a guest to the street, as opposed to the thinking that cars primarily have to be there first and everything else is just leftover space. Now, I think that's really important to start thinking about streets and the spaces between buildings that encourage that type of environment where people are walking, cycling. It is safe for them to do so, and the car is a guest in that space. I got reminded of the importance of walking, and you mentioned there about walking, cycling, being in an environment where you've got plants and trees around you. And I got reminded to a story where back in the day when I was practicing architecture in Glasgow, there was a famous story of the famous inventor James Watt, who invented the steam engine. And it was said that he had a eureka moment of how to improve the steam engine whilst he was walking in Glasgow Green. And that to me was fantastic. I was amazing because, yes, we can be focused too much on the built environment, but it's actually the spaces between the buildings that offer these moments of tranquility, peace, space to think, which sometimes we kind of forget.
We humans evolved to walk. We lived for thousands of years on this earth walking. Last 100 years, the invention of a car. By the way, the cars and the bicycles were invented at the same time. And then in the last 50 years, the dependence of cars are costing us dearly. So in terms of the congestion that we are seeing in our cities right now is due to car-centric city design. The car-centric city design is leading to a sedentary lifestyle. It's a vicious cycle. The sedentary lifestyle is causing an obesity epidemic. 1 in every 3 adults in the UAE is suffering from obesity. 1 in every 14 youngsters and adults and adolescents is obese. Part of it is due to physical inactivity and access to, of course, junk food and all of that. So what I'm just saying is that we are right now have to re-educate people about their sedentary lifestyle and their lifestyle choices and their impact on their health and wealth. Obesity is a leading cause for cardiovascular disease. You know, the sedentary lifestyle and physical inactivity kills as many as smoking every year. So imagine the public health awareness campaigns that are about smoking. I'm having to re-educate very educated people about the impact of their current lifestyle choices. You know, the same conditions that promote cycling, by the way, are the same conditions that promote walking. But the first step in fixing the current paradigm in our cities and moving to more sustainable cities is to actually promote walking. Because, Camille, every trip around our cities starts and ends up with walking. And people tell me, Deema, we have here we are passionate about cars and we love cars and it's a status symbol. But I would say even the fanciest cars, even the people who are riding the fanciest cars, every strip starts and ends up with walking. So that's why we need to fix that infrastructure component of those cities. And we remind people that we were born to walk. And if we don't walk, we are really paying the price dearly for that.
Wow. Thank you for bringing that up. I really love the passionate response that you've got there. And I think that will resonate with a lot of us, especially myself. I've got cars. We need cars.
Me too.
But at the same time, we understand when do we jump into the car and when can we actually just walk? Right. So I think it's making that small lifestyle change, whereas before you would just jump into the car to do everything, even to go and get a pint of milk from the supermarket. But now you kind of think, can I not just walk there? That's usually, like you're saying, we were born to walk. And, I remember my time in the UK, I never had a car. I walked everywhere. Why I'm saying all of this, I'm coming to the question about the challenges that we're going to face. A lot of the things that we face, for example, here in the region, climate, for example, a lot of things that people talk about, the climate's too hot to walk for most of the year. So what are the challenges that you're facing when you're trying to advocate for a healthier city, city where people can walk and cycle and be safe in the streets?
So before we talk about the challenges, we can talk about the benefits of creating cities for everyone and cities for people who walk and cycle. Let's start with safety. A street whereby you have so many eyes on the street, whereby you have so many people on the street, are streets for everyone. They're good for women, they're good for children, and they're good for everyone. So the streets that have more people walking and cycling on them are safer streets. On the other hand, streets who have cars and passing through them on a high speed are less safe because you don't have the footfall that will actually protect the vulnerable road users. Second thing about the benefits of promoting walking and cycling infrastructure is actually it's more affordable. So it is the most affordable mode of transport comparing to owning a car and walking. And it's actually the most efficient because it's time saving, etc. And at the same time, they noticed that for instance, in London, where they implemented Legible London, the TfL implemented many initiatives to actually get people out of the public transport. This is before COVID, and moving them to walk and to do the shorter trips for walking and cycling. And people who walk and cycle actually spend much more in local retail. So we are right now seeing so many local retail and street retail shops closing down because people are ordering online. They're finding it easier. They're finding it cheaper because people they don't have to pay rent, and those retailers don't have to pay rents, and they don't have to pay a lot of the cost associated with having a physical retail place. However, it's causing our retail spaces to be hollowed out, and we are having very bland, empty, grand street retail. So, however, when we could promote walking and cycling, people start to activate the street and spend more within the community, and which creates more wealth and creates more real estate value. And when they create more wealth and real estate value, the neighborhood becomes more lively. Thirdly, is that we are, of course, when people walk and cycle, it's good for their mental well-being and emotional well-being, which is the core of what you are promoting. So we know that when you walk, actually become smarter, such as James Watt. So you get ideas, you get more creative. It's like a form of meditation. Of course, you become physically active. You are less risk of so many things related to dementia, related to obesity, cardiovascular disease. So all of that is actually you're contributing to physical well-being. What about independence? If we are looking at for people who are elderly, which is our communities are becoming older and older, and we are looking at the vulnerable road users of our children who are becoming less independent, and they are not ready to face the real world. When they are walking and cycling around our cities, they become more independent, and they will require less care, and they will have more sense of ownership and sense of agency in order to make decisions and better decisions for the world. there is also a sense of social aspect of walking and cycling. When people walk and cycle around cities, they become more aware of their community needs. They will become more engaged in their community matters, and they start calling in about maintenance. They're trying to take more initiatives to do maintenance around the streets. They will become dedicated more about the trees on the streets, and the well-being, the physical aspect of the streets. In addition to, they will start knowing their neighbors, and when they take care of their neighbors, they become they more of a cohesive community, and we will face the loneliness pandemic, so the loneliness problem that we are facing in our communities right now. So all these are the benefits of cycling and walking. So of course, we are using less cars. We are causing less emissions. We are extracting less materials in order to make new cars, even if they're electric, by the way. We're not solving anything. And lastly, we are reducing the actual noise pollution and the particulate pollution within those streets. So this is also impacting our health and well-being as well. It's all directly related to walking and cycling.
That's really, really great that you brought that up. I want to touch on one of the first things that you mentioned there about eyes on the streets, the visual contact that one might have with drivers. So what I mean by that is that the more people there are on streets, I would see that cars slow down more because they have to be more aware of people are on the streets, as opposed to if there are no people on the streets, they would just zoom past. So I think it's more about the visual contact between motorists and pedestrians.
Safety and security we're talking about the crimes, and safety we're talking about safety in general. However, the motorist's behavior change the behavior in design, which is the core things that we do every day. You can prompt them to with the environment. So and then sometimes like in signs and all those signs and the cautionary signs and those traffic signs, I don't think they're very, very effective. They're good in cases of liability and litigation, but however, design changes when we humans are very sensitive to certain triggers in the environment, and this is how they design. So yeah, people slow down when they see more children on the streets, more people on the streets. However, we cannot encourage people to go on the streets and to go walk and cycle if the infrastructure is not there. And how do we get the infrastructure there? Okay, some people tell me, Deema, I don't have a sidewalk in my city, in my street, because the first thing they do when they put a road on, they put the asphalt, the carriageway, the lanes for the cars, and then the people tell me I don't have a sidewalk. But then you have an agency as a citizen in your neighborhood in actually to request that sidewalk and demonstrate that is important. I did it many times in Dubai. And I've called in. There's a number, if you want me to mention it. It's called ask@rta.ae. You just request, even before I worked with the RTA, you just request that I need a footpath over here, I need a sidewalk over here, I need the crossing over here. And they respond to you, and they have a deadline on how to respond to you. So you have an agency as we all citizens. However, in my case, in my street design team, I will facilitate this process of improving certain neighborhoods, especially in my case, around schools, around the public transportation, and around the dense neighborhoods or deep tourist destinations or beaches, etc. When I worked in the RTA, we worked around public transportation, we worked around the major destinations such as the Kite Beach. However, right now I want to focus more on schools and around schools. And I will tell you an example about my children's school, what we did in it.
Amazing. Which leads me to the next question is, how can people who's listening to this, if you're listening to this outside the UAE, do get in touch with Deema anyways. But if you're living in the UAE, in Dubai, and you're listening to this, how can people get in touch with you and the work that you do?
The best thing is to book a free consultation with me, and we can talk about your needs. My email, you will share my email and my contacts, but it's going to be at www.streetdesignteam.com, and we can discuss about your community needs, your aspirations and your goals, and we can determine the best way to go. Even if I get calls calls because I'm active on LinkedIn, and it's one of the best places to find me. I get calls from contacts I have in KSA. Deema, how can we improve safety around this school? How can we improve it? And I'm always willing to help. I get calls about how to do cycle lanes, about public transport, around public transportation, and I'm always happy to help. And if I don't know, I can also connect you with experts in the field.
Amazing. And we will include all the contact details, social media handles, LinkedIn contact in the description of the episode as well. So go ahead and connect with Deema. If you have any questions, queries, anything that you want to, to ask, or even, like you're saying, book a consultation, go ahead and do that. Deema, we are coming up to the tail end of this conversation. I'm hoping that we could go on, but it's I think we might need to do another episode of this just as a follow-up, because it's really interesting of the connection that we have between the built environment, the places that we live, work, and play, to the relationship of mental health and well-being. So I think that's something that's really interesting that we can cover in the next episode. But for now, unfortunately, we're coming up to the tail end, and usually there's a tradition at the end of the podcast, we have a quick 5-question round. So I haven't briefed you on this. So if you're okay, I didn't brief you on this. I'm just gonna throw it at you. But if you're okay to go ahead with this, we can start. Is that okay?
Yes. Yeah. Let's do it.
Amazing. Okay. So first question is, what is your favorite word?
Peace. Actually, it resonated with me when you started your Hika, and it's been a continuous journey. And it's not the complacency; it's peace. Is just because knowing, like, it's peace is not the opposite of anxiety. It's just like to understand that you can have anxiety and you can have peace with that anxiety. So you can have fear, but you can have a peace that you are feeling with fear. You can have a challenge, but you can have peace that you have a challenge ahead. So yeah, I think peace resonated with me when you started today. So I appreciate it.
I love that. I think that's one of the first times anyone's mentioned peace. And I think that's peace, with the positive and the negative. So yeah, amazing. Love that. Okay. So second question is, what are you currently reading or listening to?
Okay. I am listening to Radical Acceptance. I'm sure you know this book, and So that's a book I'm really interested to right now, and maybe this is where I got the notion of knowing that there's anxiety and it's going to be there, and you have peace with it. So yeah, maybe that's how it led to me answering this today.
Nice, love it. Okay, so question number 3: what is the worst advice you've ever received?
I think the worst advice when people tell you that this is not happening your way because of your background, where you are, where you're from, your gender. I think that's a very ineffective advice, and it's distracting. So because I can't change my gender, I can't change who I am. So why would I why waste time on thinking about these things?
I love that you've described it as a distraction, because that just, sometimes people take it as a big thing, but for me, it just resonates that, okay, it's there, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Why put a lot of energy on something that I can't change?
Amazing. I can't change. I love that.
Yeah. So that's why, that's the notion. It might be the reason. Like, everybody has prejudice all over, but I can't change it. So what can I do? What I notice is that when you work harder and you're genuine, you will move forward. Even if the people don't buy your message, they don't take your message, they're not convinced. However, you will gain from that experience and move to the next. And not everybody has to love us, and not everybody has to be convinced of our principles or what. Yeah, everybody's free to think whatever they want to think. Yeah.
I love that outlook. Amazing. Okay, so question number 4. On the flip side, what is the best advice you've ever received?
I've been very, 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 very fortunate with the people I spend time with. So I cannot attribute it. If I attribute it to someone and not attribute it to someone else, my husband always says move forward. So don't get stuck on the negative things, and just keep moving forward. And he's my amazing support in the street design and everything else. And my dad gave me a good advice when I was young. He says, always make new mistakes. And I always think about it. And I always tell my kids about it. So making new mistakes is fantastic. Making the same mistake over and over again, it's like madness. It's just again, waste of time. So yeah, why waste time making old mistakes? Just make a new mistake.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've heard that. Always make new mistakes. That's
Mhm.
I love that because it's so expansive. It just means keep trying. It's okay to make mistakes. The main thing is that you keep trying, but don't make the same mistakes. That's a different. Something's wrong. Something's wrong there if you keep making the same mistakes over and over again. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, final question. Question number 5. What can we expect from Deema in the next 5 years?
I have a plan for my startup. So my dream for my startup is to build more skilled professionals in the region that are focused on human-centric cities and walking and cycling urbanism, because it's not a gap only in our region, it's a gap worldwide in professionals who are really not knowledgeable in walking and cycling. The other gap is I would love if we really make a difference in raising awareness on the current mobility practices and paradigm that we are right now having, and how it's impacting really our economy, our well-being, and our environment. And the third one is that I wish I can help 100 schools in 5 years to promote more what we call active transport and active travel through from and to the school, like instead of being the students getting shuttled to the school by car every morning, causing all kinds of inefficiencies that we talked about earlier. And I wish I can promote, work with 100 schools to promote active travel around them, and not only in Dubai, not only in Abu Dhabi and the region, but also in my home country, Jordan, and the Levant in general.
Amazing. I love that target. It's tangible. It has a specific aim, time frame, and I love that. That's really great. Thank you for sharing that with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm very grateful for you, grateful for the work that you are putting in the world, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Deema. And again, like I said, hopefully we can do this again in another episode where we cover a slightly different topic, but related topic to what we discussed today. Unfortunately, everyone, that's the time that we have today. I'm truly grateful for the energy, the insights that Deema has provided to all of us. I've learned something new, as always, in these conversations. So thank you so much, Deema, for your time and energy and sharing all your experience with us today.
Thanks, Camille. My pleasure.
So until the next episode, stay safe, stay healthy, as always. And from Deema,
bye.
Peace and love from us always. Bye-bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in from wherever you are. My sincere hope is that this episode has not only resonated with you, but also given you some invaluable tips and strategies to improve your life. Don't forget to share your comments with me. As you know, I love to hear your views. Also, remember to follow the Academy, follow me, my guests, and tag us on our social media handles, which will be provided in the description. Most importantly, please leave a review and let me know that you've heard this podcast and how it has impacted you. Until the next episode, stay safe, stay healthy, and peace and love from me always.